Good morning and welcome. Once again, we're coming together and we've been going through the book of Acts, but now we have entered into the Advent season. And so for the next 4 Sundays and then on Christmas Eve, we will be talking about all of the various parts that make up the story of Jesus's birth. And it's quite an exciting story. So this morning, it is the Advent Sunday of Hope. It's also known as the Advent Sunday of Prophecy. And we're going to be looking at the prophetic realities of Christ's birth. Now, another Christmas season is upon us. It seems to go by faster every year. In less than a month, and it's really 25 sleeps to be exact, we'll be waking up on yet another Christmas morning. And I'm not sure what everyone's traditions are, but I can suppose that there'll be presents to open, get togethers to attend with family and friends, and meals to be shared, because that's what happens in our family. In the meantime, there'll be songs about Christmas and winter playing endlessly at just about every workplace, grocery store, gas station, of course, the mall. And depending on what your listening preferences are, they might even be on in your car, on the radio, because there are numerous stations that are now playing them 24/7. Every Christmas show, do you remember those? They're still on. Every movie about Christmas that has ever been made will likely be available for live viewing or streaming at your leisure, be it on your phone, laptop, computer, and or your TV. And I'm not saying this might happen. I'm saying it will happen. It has already started to happen. I'm not a prophet, and what I just said wasn't prophecy. God didn't reveal this to me that this would happen. I know these things will happen because they happen every year without fail. Now, short of a worldwide catastrophe, or if God so deems it, the return of his son, it will continue to happen year after year after year. Today is the first Sunday of Advent, and it is considered the Sunday of Hope, or as some know it, the Sunday of Prophets. It is a day where we take a moment to reflect on the messages that were delivered by God concerning what he was going to do, as delivered through those he selected to be his spokespeople in the world. God had revealed himself through Moses so that people might know who he, God, is, how much he loved his people, and what he would do to redeem them, to make them a righteous people in his eyes. But it would require his miraculous intervention. They say before an earthquake, it is first sensed by animals, and then they start to act differently. Or there might even be slight tremors that kind of point in the direction that something bigger is coming. The same can be said of tsunamis or hurricanes or other natural disasters. We seem to have systems set up that can predict that it's coming, and they're usually quite right. But we know there are things that precede a catastrophe, warning signs. God's mighty plan to redeem mankind was preceded by numerous signs. He revealed details of the event to chosen people so they would record them, and mankind would not miss a very special event. Some of the details revealed by God predate the event by nearly 1,400 years, while others were recorded about 700 years before they happened. In Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14, God said his son would be born of a virgin. And the Hebrew word is halmah. Isaiah recorded this somewhere between 701 and 676 years before the birth of Jesus. God said, "Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel." Once again, that's from Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14. A virgin birth is miraculous. It can't happen without divine intervention. Women do not spontaneously become pregnant. It never happened before Jesus, and it will not happen again. For anyone who might want to argue that the Bible was written by man, from man's thoughts and his ideas, a made-up story, I want us to remember that the ancient records are documented as being ancient. They were not written after the fact so as to include the many details of Jesus' birth or his death or his resurrection. Well before that, they were written. God, knowing what man would do, the steps that man would take to discredit his work, his word, God took a further step in complicating the likelihood that anyone could claim it was happenstance. He recorded a gender, a son. A child born to the virgin would be a boy. Well, that's a 50-50 chance. So God did one more thing. He recorded a name, Emmanuel, which means God is with us. A name no one else had ever used. A title no one else could hold. God had everything that happened recorded, just as he said it would, revealing the truth through two different individuals. One a Jew, we read Matthew chapter 1, verse 22 and 23, and the other a Greek, Luke. And we read Luke chapter 1, verse 26 through 31. For you or I, or anyone else for that matter, to be able to accomplish the same feat would be the same as predicting the name of a 75-time great-grandchild. We don't even know who our grandchildren are going to be or what their names are going to be. Now try doing that 75 generations down the line with a name that has never been used before and a title that no one could ever hold. Well, the odds are pretty much against anyone other than God being able to accomplish such thing. But just in case there were still doubters, God outlined further family members. In Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, God tells Abraham that through him all the nations of the world will be blessed, speaking to the salvation which comes through Jesus, fulfilled in the genealogy of Jesus found in Matthew chapter 1, verse 1 through 16. Now, Abraham had 8 sons, and any one of those 8 could have been the one to carry on the family line, but God said it would be Isaac. And we read that in Genesis chapter 17, verse 19, and 21, verse 12. And then when we look at the genealogy in Luke chapter 3, verse 34, there it is. That was his line. Then God went even further. He said Jesus would come through the line of Jacob in Numbers chapter 24, verse 17. One of 2 children of Isaac. It is recorded as being fulfilled in Matthew chapter 1, verse 2. But again, one might have been able to choose the right son. Out of 2, it's a 50-50 chance. However, Jacob then had 12 children, and God selected Judah as the line through which his son would be born. And we read that in Genesis chapter 49, verse 10. This record predates Jesus by 1,400 years. And Hebrews 7, verse 14, confirms its fulfillment. From there, God continued to reveal to his people further details, choosing David, a king, a royal lineage, for his son, as stated in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 7, and fulfilled through Jesus as recorded in Luke chapter 1, verse 32 and 33, and again in Romans chapter 1, verse 3. So the likelihood of one person fulfilling all the familial lineage requirements of being right on all accounts is astronomical. Here's the comparison. Cover up 695,662 square kilometers. So just so you know, that's like 834 kilometers by 834 kilometers. It's a huge, massive piece of land. Now that you've got it all bordered up or whatever you do to it, cover it 2 feet deep in silver dollars. You know how big a silver dollar is. But take one of those silver dollars and put a special mark on it so that it is a significant coin out of all other coins. And in that massive piece of land, mix it in somewhere. Just randomly throw it out there and do what's got to be done to mix it in. But blindfold somebody and have them walk into this massive piece of land knee deep in silver coins, blindfolded, remember, and just randomly reach in and be able to pick out that coin. Those are the odds of getting all of the prophecies concerning Jesus' lineage right. Then there are the other prophecies as far back as 626 years before Jesus' birth. God said his son would be king. We read that in Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 5. And we see in John 19:19 the fulfillment as decreed by Pontius Pilate and written on the sign on the cross above Jesus' head, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. There's a great prophecy. God said his son would be born in Bethlehem, and we read that in Micah chapter 5, verse 1 and 2. 750 years in advance. God gave the people 750 years to be watching and to be anticipating the arrival of their Messiah, the Savior, and they missed it. When one reads Matthew chapter 2, verse 1 and Luke chapter 2, verse 46, they might wonder how, with all of the prophecies, with all that God had revealed to them in the scriptures they read every Sabbath, how did his chosen people miss it? Well, they'd become complacent. They had stopped talking to God. They stopped trusting in God, and in turn, he no longer talked to them. It was silence. There was no more revelations. There were no more prophecies. His chosen people no longer seemed to recognize that unique relationship that they had with him. Well, they wanted a relationship with him, but it was based on the idea of being God's chosen people. They liked that title, and they did whatever had to be done to, that he required them. Go to the temple, make the sacrifices, and those sort of things. But they never pursued the greatest gift he gave to them, his son. Now, what about our relationship with God today? What's that like? Have all the prophecies from God concerning Jesus been fulfilled? His birth was, as was his death and his resurrection. But is that where all the prophecies end? Or are there more revelations? As believers, as God's children, we know that there are plenty more. But do all believers believe in Jesus' return? I have met individuals who don't believe that he's coming back, that we're living in a time and, okay, they're wrong. But we need to be paying attention to what is going on in the world. Is the church looking at what's going on in the world? God gave believers signs, prophecies, so that believers would not be caught unaware of Jesus' return, and that they would be fully prepared should tomorrow be the day. Now, if you've read those prophecies, you know there is much to happen, and pretty sure it's not going to be tomorrow. But we have to be aware of the signs around us to be able to warn others that his return is coming. May you have a wonderful week and a wonderful Advent season. God bless.